everyone. I'm Ashley Hunt, Senior Project Management Instructor here at Stormwind Epic Live. And today's blog is all about certain considerations to keep in mind as Americans with cross-cultural virtual teams, perhaps on video conferencing and or some assumptions that we make about what access they have to certain websites. So this is based on cross-cultural virtual teams, but also it has to do a lot with how do we have an effective video conference without inadvertently upsetting somebody or even offending somebody. Now, Americans instinctively use a lot of hand gestures. Now, every country does. Everybody has hand gestures, but because if we're working in the United States with a cross-cultural virtual team, we want to make sure that we're not actually using hand gestures that somebody could take offense to, that we're not even aware that we've done. I've done a lot of traveling in my career to different countries, and one of the things that I always tried to study in advance were simple things that I was doing in my day-to-day that may very well be offensive to other cultures, and it was the absolute last thing that I ever wanted to do. So I am hoping to pass on some information to you as either interesting or just things to consider, even if you're just traveling for fun to other countries. But if you're running a video conference with people from different countries like the UK, Australia, Ireland, and New Zealand, you definitely don't want to use the peace sign with palms facing inward. Now that may be some way that you do the peace sign. Only do it with palms outward. Now, obviously, this is considered to be a very bad thing, a gesture that we might make if we're angry, but it would be offensive to people from that country, even if we think we're just simply making the peace sign. Something to consider there. What other hand gestures might you use on a regular basis that could be considered offensive? A thumbs up. A thumbs up, that's definitely something that I use. I'm like, oh yeah, that's great, thumbs up. However, it should never be used while working with people from Afghanistan, Iran, parts of Italy, Greece, or Brazil. These countries absolutely look at this as a highly negative, very bad hand gesture. So you definitely don't want to use this if working with any folks, whether on a video conference, anywhere that they can see your body language. That's not going to be something that you want to use. And it's a very common thing for we Americans to use the thumbs up when we're happy about something or something's good. It's not to be used with folks from countries that were listed. Now, there's other hand gestures out there. Obviously, what about okay? Have you ever used the okay symbol to represent, hey, that's all right, it's okay? Well, guess what? The okay symbol needs to be avoided at all costs with team members from Turkey, Brazil, Venezuela, and France. And these might be surprising countries to you where you might think, wow, doesn't everybody use the okay? No, it's definitely meaning zero or worthless. And that is definitely not a message that we want to be presenting to our folks from these countries that we're working with. What other hand gestures aren't that good? And some of these I would imagine are very surprising to you. Finger summoning, like, hey, come here, especially from across a room. If you're finger summoning in the Philippines, that is reserved for calling dogs. It's highly offensive. And in Singapore and Japan, the motion signals death. Basically, you're saying death will come to you. That's horrible. So try not to do that ever with those countries. And maybe just stick to hand gestures that are not listed anywhere in this blog. And I find things like this absolutely fascinating because in general, a lot of this we do without even thinking about it. Now, maybe if you're trying to stop somebody from talking or going on, obviously it's kind of rude to put your hand up anyway, but avoid using in virtual meetings with the Greek. Like maybe you're just putting your hand up because you want to talk in a virtual meeting. It's considered a major insult and it dates all the way back to the Byzantine times, so it isn't going to change anytime soon. So just be aware of the hand signals and different ways that you could inadvertently upset or insult people from your team. It might be relevant to provide training as needed. Cultural sensitivity training for your team, have cheat sheets made, refer to this blog, and also make sure that your country's internet connection can handle your technology as well, because we're talking about virtual teams. And also, something to consider. Be aware that certain technologies are not available in other countries. And so if you're recognizing these as technology that you use on your team, they might not be able to access, and some of this might be very surprising. Google is not available in Russia, China, or North Korea. So when you say, hey, just go out and Google it, they won't be able to access that. Or maybe they've heard of it, but they still can't access it. Twitter is not available in China, Turkey, Iran, or in North Korea. So if you have a Twitter feed to keep in date or up to date with your team or something like that, or even business feeds, they're not going to be available to those team members. Facebook, some virtual teams like to set up Facebooks for their teams or people that they work with, they're friends with on Facebook. Well, if you're in China, Turkey, Vietnam, Iran, Egypt, or Syria, chances are you're not going to be able to access Facebook. And if you can, in some cases, it'll be spotty at best. YouTube, Turkey, China, Iran, Pakistan, North Korea, Thailand, Iraq, and the Sudan do not have access to YouTube. And sometimes when I'm teaching, I'll use the example of, hey, have you ever gone out to YouTube to try and figure out how to do something? Well, I have to be careful if I'm in different countries or if international team members or students, because they won't understand that reference, much less be able to access YouTube. So some of these things are very simple things, but maybe these are things that we didn't know prior to going through something like this and realizing, wow, I make that hand signal all the time. Or wow, I refer people to Facebook or to YouTube all the time. I had no idea that I was inadvertently insulting people and or providing them a reference point that they're not able to meet. So hopefully this short blog gave you some insight into some of the things to be aware of when you're managing cross-cultural virtual teams, either face-to-face in their country or they in yours, or via a video conference meeting where you might not necessarily know that they're offended by making a hand gesture or something similar. So thank you so much for joining me on this blog, and hopefully it helped you out.